As the summer travel season approaches, I'm excited to let you know about 2 upcoming Taste Travels, our immersive travel series hosted by cookbook authors and me, Matt Rodbard. On June 15th, I will be joining the Mediterranean dish author Susie Carace in Barcelona for an incredible week of culinary tours, cooking classes, and plenty of wine and jamon. And on September 15th, I will be joining author and baker Mauricio Leo of The Perfect Loaf for a tour of northern Italy. We will visit artisanal Parmigiano Reggiano and balsamic vinegar producers, take a masterclass in the art of panettone, and of course, eat plenty of stuffed pasta and mortadella in and around Emilia-Romagna. Both trips are nearly sold out and closing soon. If interested, write into hello@tastecooking.com and we will get you the information. That's hello@tastecooking.com. I hope to see you on one of our taste travels this summer.
Celebrity chefs are shit. They never touch your food anyway, in most cases. It's like the line cooks who are responsible for how your food tastes in like 99% of the cases. I know we're used to the myth of the celebrity chef standing at the pass and like rearranging your plate with tweezers.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Robert Sietsema is a longtime New York City restaurant critic and neighborhood wanderer who has written for The Village Voice and Eater, and who prior to that ran the influential underground food zine Down the Hatch. Robert currently publishes a terrific Substack, Robert Sietsema's New York. It's dispatches in a purely Sietsema way, full of reporting, knowledge, and lots of undiscovered restaurant gems from around New York City. You should really be reading Robert's work, and our conversation covers burgers, pizza, and New York as a place that has everything, and it's not always good. Without further ado, here's a conversation with the legendary Robert Sietsema. I hope you enjoy this episode. Robert Sietsema, welcome back to This Is Taste. How are you?
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me back.
I can't wait to get into your work and your newly launched Substack. This is a platform that is made for your work, and I really appreciate it.
Substack is an interesting phenomenon.
Well, before we get into your recent writing and some of the things that are good, some of the things that are not so good, Robert, where have you been dining out as of late?
All sorts of places. I'm going to this place called Animo with an exclamation point.
Nice.
It's in East Midtown, and it's a place that's decided, what the hell, we're going to serve only breakfast. We're going to serve breakfast from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, and it's all going to be Mexican breakfast.
Oh, my.
And I just thought that was like such a great idea, because more and more restaurants are kind of micro-focusing in a desperate attempt to lure customers. And this was like the perfect lure. So
So when you're doing all-day breakfast in the Mexican style, what are the dishes that you're looking forward to?
Well, see, when I went up there, I was worried that it would be like just one section of Mexico. Like they would be Pueblans and they would just be serving Pueblan breakfast, or it would be Tex-Mex. But it turns out that they're really trying hard to cover as many bases as possible. So you have the pan dulce if you want to kind of dine lightly. They have all of these egg breakfasts, including this thing's called huevos norteños, which is eggs scrambled with machaca, which is, the dried beef of the Sonoran Desert. So the idea that you can get that in New York City is like wonderful.
So great. I feel like that needs a field trip for us on the show. I want to ask you a broad question. I mean, Robert, you've been reviewing restaurants for decades, and do you still have the same excitement walking into a new place that you maybe have read online or your friends have told you about?
Or that I've stumbled on with my own pedestrian,
Walking these streets?
Oh, yeah. I do. I've never lost my enthusiasm for it. And I have no explanation other than, as a child, when I lived at home, I ate 3 times in restaurants in my entire life. Now, this is not something that you could encounter in New York City, where everybody is eating in restaurants all the time. Like, how many times do you think you ate in restaurants between when you were 0 and when you were like 18?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, if I have to assess, my parents loved restaurants, and they were certainly diners, but this was the 80s, so I don't know, maybe a couple does, maybe.
I love to go to restaurants, but I could never do it because my parents, they were too. They're wonderful, dead now, but they were wonderful people. But to them, their attitude was, if you have food in the pantry and you have a house and a kitchen, why the hell would you ever go to a restaurant?
Right. And really, I mean, at the time, though, let's take people back. I mean, it probably was a very different restaurant culture. And like, there was obviously higher costs, but the variety just wasn't quite there, right?
No, and you ended up kind of eating things like red sauced Italian or meatloaf and mashed potatoes that you could just as easily have made at home.
Yeah, it's true. So when did you get the bug for actually going to restaurants and realizing that there was more to a restaurant than just the meal? There was actually, there was a world there to build on the page.
Well, when I went to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin, I met friends who were from other cultures who had enthusiasm about their own cuisine, and I ended up trying Indian food for the first time, and it just blew my mind. I mean, I came from a culture where if you put onion powder in the food, it was considered like a radical act, and suddenly I'm eating something that's got 30 spices in it all at once. It was just wonderful. But when I came to New York, that's what really sealed the deal. I mean, I was suddenly surrounded by just the most amazing restaurants.
Yeah.
And inexpensive too. So it's sometimes cheaper to go out to eat than it is to make stuff at home.
Completely, especially if you're cooking for one or two and there's a scale issue. And I'm going to link to a previous episode that we had that we talked all about Down the Hatch, your influential zine that you founded, and I personally have a pretty big collection of it. And I will have you back to actually go through some specific pages, because I really want to relive that. And, you're always welcome back. But I wanted to have you in really to talk about your new work and launching on Substack. And let me ask you, when Eater laid you off as the last critic at Eater, were you surprised?
I had been expecting it because they had been, my other co-critic, Ryan Sutton, of a fine fellow, he was laid off too.
Yeah.
And, Bill had been sent packing, years before that. So I just think at a certain point, online publications and even regular publications, they decide, well, now that there's, TikTok and Instagram and Yelp and every other way for people to promote and judge food, why should we bother having a person that's a critic? And what's a critic anyway but just a blowhard who kind of it too often just extols the food and doesn't even complain about it anymore. So
I mean, I push back on that sentiment. I know you're having some fun with it, but I mean, of course, Ryan had his style, and really he was doing these long reviews that, sometimes dealt with the data of restaurants, and you were doing long reviews at times, but you were also doing real service journalism, which you've always done, which is just combing the city for incredible finds and new restaurants. And I mean, why did Eater not see value in that? I mean, what can you square that? I mean, or is it a larger conversation about just monetization of words on the page? Is it just so hard?
It's AI. It's writers who mainly write. I mean, at a certain point, they discover, can the reader really tell the difference between a short piece that's been written from a press release or whether the reviewer has actually gone there and tasted the food and developed some attitudes about it? I would say that people that really love food, they want a real review. But I swear there are many readers out there who can't tell the difference.
Yeah, of course. And then you layer on social video and the way, a platform like TikTok, puffs up restaurants for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the length of the cheese pole is what indexes those restaurants higher, which we know is maybe not the best way to judge a restaurant. I mean, do you feel a little deflated when you see these TikTok accounts hyping up restaurants that are objectively terrible?
As real estate people are fond of saying, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, we have no power to halt it. People that love to look at Instagram and think that's the same as eating a meal, that's their prerogative. And it certainly is cheaper to eat something with your eyes than to eat it with your actual mouth. So, so all I can say is that somehow the need for criticism has been at least partly supplanted by social media. And, and I love getting mad at social media, but it serves a purpose and people love it. So, it's a thing unto itself.
Yeah, and really, I respect the way that you responded to this because there's no sour grapes. It really is what it is. And, instead of just like being at home and staying mad or having any emotion, you did something really cool. You launched your own publication on Substack and you're not slowing down at all. It's almost like you're writing more. And like, why Substack? Why did this work for you? And then second part is, are you actually making some money? Are people subscribing? And of course, I'm linking to it in the show notes. Please subscribe as you should.
Thank you so much. It's called Robert Sietsema's New York. In case you have trouble finding it, I don't think you will. But I don't think you'll have trouble finding it, but you may not want to. But at any rate, I've heard statistics that suggest that 2/3 of the journalists in the United States have been laid off. In other words, and I've personally know many, many people who are no longer working as journalists. So the thing about Substack is, I don't know if you know what the structure is, the audience I'm talking to at the moment. The structure is that you send out your reviews as emails, and people pay you to get those emails. In my case, I tried to make it as low a pay as possible. I would almost have it for free, but it's $5 a month or $50 a year. And for that, you get 3 emails a week. So in other words, what I've done is I've replaced Vox, which was paying me, with the reading public, whose pockets are not as deep, unfortunately. So at the moment, I've been doing it for 2 months, and I'm making a projected income of $15,000 a year.
Okay.
Which does not sound like a lot, but it's fun to try to build that, and it becomes a game like anything on the web. And I've heard of there are tales of people making $100,000 a year on Substack. But, once again, Substack has become kind of too crowded a field.
Yeah.
So, I expect to be supplanted by better writers and better eaters as time goes on.
Oh, I push back on that, Robert. And I think the reason to support you on Substack, which I suggest, is not just because you're getting a high volume of great restaurant recs, but you're supporting Robert's work, not just what you are putting out now, but your previous work, which I think is important to note at the Village Voice, at Vox, and now online. Like I think that it's a patronage system, like you would pay NPR. It's not like you have to give something specific.
Or like a Renaissance painter. Think of it that way.
There you go.
Yeah,
This is the future of food media, and if you can swing $50 to support Robert's work and, of course, get a delightful email several times a week, just do it. If you have it.
Even better, every Monday is free.
Yes.
So you can actually subscribe and then just open the Monday email. And
yeah. You can give it a test drive. You don't have to pay right away.
On the other hand, email is such a pain in the ass. If you're like me, you get like 50,000 emails a day and you can barely even look at them.
Yeah, I think we're getting better at kind of like funneling out the good and the bad. And when you're a paid subscriber, you obviously want to read that stuff. But, even if you don't read every single one and you support Robert, it's still important. I want to actually get into some of the work you're doing, too. Like, this isn't just about a media conversation, and we could go all day about it. But I really do want to talk about these terrific sends that you've been creating. I use sends, it's very pithy. It's these articles, this journalism you're creating. I like this story that you wrote about B&H Dairy, which, of course, anyone who's ever been, we've talked about on the show, Eliza and I, it's quite the Robert place, I feel, and it's located in New York's East Village. You ranked the soups, which went veg 3, tomato 2, lentil 1. You have other rankings. Tell us about the soups at B&H and what it compelled you to do a real throwback listicle, which I fucking love.
Oh, thank you so much. You're allowed to say fuck?
Oh, we can say it, buddy. I just led with it.
At any rate, this is just the kind of thing that I love. because to begin with, it's inexpensive. It's not an expensive project. The soups have been around forever. They are like a secret passion of so many people. I can remember when I was working at the Village Voice, Robert Christgau, my editor, would always go and get a soup from B&H like every Wednesday or something. To begin with, the soups are delicious. The soups are vegetarian. So even if you don't tell people that you like vegetarianism, even if you're not. But even if you don't tell them, you can do it in secret. But even better, the beauty of B&H is it's a holdover from 1938. When that part of the East Village, to begin with, there was no East Village, it was the Lower East Side. And that was an area called the Yiddish Broadway, where Yiddish language theater was like the passion. And there are two theaters still on 2nd Avenue that were Yiddish language theaters with stars like Molly Picone and Zero Mostel. And this was where people went to nosh before and after performances. And it was a Jewish dairy restaurant, which almost no longer exists. You, Matt, may remember a couple of decades ago when there were still Jewish dairy restaurants like Hammers and places like that. And they're all gone now except B&H. And B&H is this squirrely little narrow place where people are all kind of sitting on top of each other. I can remember going in there when I first arrived in East Village around 1977 and seeing people sitting at the counter eating bowls of sour cream, for God's sake. But that was considered a rich person's dinner.
Yeah.
You know, it was oh my God, I can afford a bowl of sour cream.
Wow.
So anyway, I went there, I tried all the soups, I rated them as a public service, but also because I wanted to and I thought it would be a funny gimmick.
Yeah.
And I brought a couple friends with me and we were just sitting there they thought I was crazy the first time I sat down and ordered 4 bowls of soup at once. So
it's for the work and, it's a gimmick, but listen, there's great service there because you're highlighting this restaurant that is from a bygone era. You're, of course, telling people to order the lentil soup.
Which is indeed the best soup.
Talk about it. Tell me about why it's so good.
The reason it's so good, years ago, the people B&H, Heller, and I don't remember the other guy's name, who opened B&H in 1938, they've been through a succession of different owners. And now there's 2 owners, a married couple, one of whom is Polish and the other is Egyptian. And I swear the Egyptian guy slips some cumin into the lentil soup and it just sends it into orbit.
Yeah.
It is like a home run. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Do you still order the whitefish melt there?
I haven't in a while.
Yeah.
I love the patty, the tuna melt.
Yeah. The tuna melt is more your guy there.
But the soup, it makes you feel so virtuous to eat it. And it's like a dieter's delight, too. I mean, you're cutting down your calories. Oh, they make the challah bread there, which they call holly bread in the East Village patois.
I love that memory.
I'm Nomi Fry.
I'm Vincent Cunningham.
I'm Alex Schwartz, and we are Critics at Large, a podcast from The New Yorker. Guys, what do we do on the show every week?
We look into the startling maw of our culture and try to figure something out.
That's right. We take something that's going on in the culture now. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a book, maybe it's just kind of a trend.
And we expand it across culture as kind of a pattern or a template.
Join us on Critics at Large from The New Yorker. New episodes drop every Thursday. Follow wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm thinking about these folks eating the sour cream bowls. What are they wearing in 1977 in that era? What's the fit like for these folks?
Well, that was toward the end of the hippie era.
Okay.
So there's hippies in there eating because the hippies were big vegetarians.
Yeah.
But there are old Alta cockers. There's old people sitting in there, and it's a great kind of mixing. Also, and now there's actually Zoomers sitting in there because it's so inexpensive and the food is so good.
Yeah. I sat there solo recently, and I saw a great mix of people. It's a great place to go before a New York, a downtown show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great little place to meet and catch up.
And, it barely lasted through the pandemic. That's the kind of place that is always in danger of just, Katz's was actually in trouble a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was buying the air rights. And, no matter how good the people are that own a place. You know, if some real estate developer comes up and says, I'm going to give you $50 million, believe me, they're going to like sell their heritage down the river so fast.
There's always a price in New York for real estate, of course, and we've seen so many places go away because of that reason. Is Paul still open in the East Village, the burger shop?
I don't like that place very much, but yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is an amazing place. You should go there at least once.
At least once. I love the opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been there
There's
in
a
years.
cow on the counter.
Yeah, there's a cow on
like
the
a
counter.
life-size cow.
What's been a bad meal recently? You're always out there doing the work, and it's tough. Sometimes you encounter bad meals.
Well, today, for example, I'm sitting. This is one of those days where you eat something and you're going like, "Is that going to make me sick?"
Yeah.
It's there's a new convenience store that replaced a 7-Eleven in Chelsea on 7th Avenue. Between, I won't give you the name, but it's between 21st and 22nd. And they have a big sign out that says all these Indian food things are available. Mm-hmm. And I went right in there and to begin with, they didn't have much selection. There were like 5 dishes. And there was one, the only one that had flesh in it was supposed to be a butter chicken.
Oh, no.
But it looked like kind of like cream of chicken soup or something.
So a little bit of a canned situation happening there.
Or God knows who was making it, but certainly not an Indian. So anyway, I tried it, and I noted that the food was not hot, even though it was on the steam table. So I'm sitting here thinking,
I mean, do you have like an iron belly, or do you ever get like food poisoning, so to speak?
I learned a long time ago about food poisoning that the general incubation period for E. coli, for example, is 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So people that say, "Oh, I ate that chicken danduri last night and now I got food poisoning," it was something that they ate a long time ago that gave them food poisoning, or just it's common enough for something not to agree with you or to repeat on you as
repeat on you. I mean, I totally agree, and I think the use of the word food poisoning is tricky, and I know chefs have been on the show have a really, I would say, unique relationship with the guest who has food poisoning, because ultimately you're maybe drinking too much, or the spice level is too high, and
or just depressed.
Yeah.
I long ago found out. I once wrote a piece for Eater that was killed. I mean, I have a kind of a dungeon or maybe a morgue of pieces that have been killed for one reason or another, and I just love it. I love to write a piece that is killed.
Okay.
But I wrote a piece giving the goods, revealing the shortcomings of food criticism. And I had a whole list of them, of things that are reasons why you should doubt what any food critic says. And this was considered to be so poisonous that they wouldn't run the piece. And I'll have to dig it out. But
I think you gotta publish it, Robert.
I loved writing it. It was like, and I was using myself as an example.
Yeah,
but
publish that.
One of the main problems with food criticism is it depends so much on how the critic feels that day. If he broke up with his boyfriend or girlfriend, if he's just depressed and goes to eat a meal, everything tastes bad.
Yeah.
And that may work its way into the which is why under the old system, why you were supposed to go 3 times, according to Craig Claiborne, he developed that. But that has so fallen by the wayside. It's, publications do not want to pay the expenses anymore.
And it's such a shame. I mean, because you need for the, at least for the respect of the restaurant, if something, is plated absolutely incorrectly, it shouldn't be damnation. In some of our major publications, I know every publication can't afford 3 visits, but certainly the biggies should.
Well, one of the corollaries of that is for some reason, critics entertain the idea that food has consistency in a restaurant.
Right.
I swear you could eat a dish 10 consecutive days, and it would be completely different every day. And not just because of how you feel, but just because it's different.
Yeah. Different day, different chef working the line, cook working the line.
Let's face it. celebrity chefs are shit. They never touch your food anyway, in most cases. It's like the line cooks who are responsible for how your food tastes in like 99% of the cases. I know we're used to the myth of the celebrity chef standing at the pass and like rearranging your plate with tweezers. But the fact of the matter is that is so rare in my experience. And if anything, the celebrity chef is off, like appearing on TV or shaking people's hands or kind of like, swanning it up.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to something very positive.
Sorry about all that negative.
No, I asked the question, you answered it, but I want to talk about some great spots. And Avilia's Tamales, you named it the best tamale in New York, and I'd just love to hear about this place.
Other people have written about it in the past. One of the sad things about restaurant writing these days, and it's partly motivated by TikTok and Instagram, et cetera, is that people only want to hear about the new places, they assume. And the fact of the matter is many places get better as they age. Now, this place, and we're talking about the tamale place, Avilia's, right?
Avilia's.
Which is to begin with, it's on Northern Boulevard. It's a bit of a hike north of Roosevelt Avenue where the subway goes. But I was wandering around one day and I was just going north on Junction Boulevard, and there it was. It looked so new, even though it's already 3 years old. But it's a place, and there's probably 3 or 4 of them in town, that devotes itself exclusively to tamales. And if you've never, the cart tamales that the old ladies sell you, when you're going down into the subway are great. I love them. But they are made to be a little bit hard so that you can carry them and walk with them. Whereas a real tamale that Mom made is going to be a bit soft. It's going to be like a pudding, or it's going to be like, a little tart or something. It's just, you unwrap it and it's just so fragrant and so soft and
and ideally
so creamy.
It's been made, there's a nixtamal process somewhere nearby.
Yeah,
right?
And they're definitely, they go as far back in the process as you need to go to make them good. And this place has 16 tamales that they sell regularly, plus special ones. But the thing that broke my heart, it was so great, was that they have these things made out of tamales. Like they have the tamales divorciados, where they put one tamale on one side and one tamale on the other, and one has red sauce and the other has green sauce. The whole idea is that tamales are like a divorced couple, and they put a fried egg on the top of each one. So when you cut into it, the yolk kind of spills out over onto the salsa and the tamale. It is the best thing you've ever eaten in your life.
That sounds...
Well, maybe not.
Well, if you're like tamales, of course, is the best thing you've had because it's the best in New York.
And to have that many different, they have tamale sandwiches, for God's sake, where they put like 2 or 3 tamales inside a soft roll.
Yeah, what a great idea.
Oh, man.
Let's move on and talk about hamburgers, because you also ranked New York City hamburgers, and I love this article. It's why you subscribe. And, your rankings was good. I'm really interested. 3 Red Hook Tavern, 2 Minetta Tavern, 1 Joe Jr.'s. Gotta go to Joe Jr.'s.
And that was a big surprise.
It was.
Because Joe Jr., it's just a diner.
It is.
It's like a little broken down diner, too. I'm surprised.
What's it like? It's like 17th Street or something?
Well, there used to be one on 6th Avenue. There were 2.
Oh, there were 2.
Owned by cousins or something. But this one is on 3rd Avenue and maybe like 16th Street, right in the corner.
Yep.
And it's even for a diner. We have diners that are like cruise ships, that are like kind of magnificent vessels.
Yeah.
This place is just like a little dump.
Yeah.
And but they grind their beef fresh. They're really careful. This is the only diner where I can remember where they ask you, how do you want your burger done? Have you ever heard that in a diner? Usually it's like gray, like crumbling cinder block.
Yeah.
But this one, they know how to cook your burger. And, if you watch them work, you can tell, you as a burger aficionado, I'm sure you know these same rules about burgers, that you don't handle the patty too much.
Definitely.
The less the higher the fat, the less you handle it, the more recently it has been ground. These hamburgers are just, they would make you cry. They're so good.
It's a great burger, and I have some comments on the list. I mean, first off, no JG Melon at all on the list, and Hamburger America got like 5 or 6.
It was number 7.
Okay, number 7. You know, that's the one that, you know, New York Times puts really high, and George Motz has been on the show.
That's I mean, if I put it in the top 10,
you did.
So
okay,
that's already pretty high.
Fair enough. Like we're not splitting hairs here. You know, making Robert's top 10 is a big thing. No JG Melon though. I'm curious.
Melon has been in my lists before.
Yeah,
I love Melon. The last time I went there, it was a little bit off.
Yeah, sure.
So I love burgers. I could eat burgers.
It's such a good food.
One time, my father, who was a snack food expert, used to go to Japan for Frito-Lay. And he had this friend named Mike who brought popcorn to Japan and became a zillionaire. Mike sent his son to stay with me and my wife Gretchen in our Lower East Side tenement, and he came and all he wanted to eat were hamburgers, and he ate a hamburger for every meal for the 2 weeks he was here, and that shows in what regard people hold hamburgers.
Many love hamburgers, and for a food that is quite singular and you know, components wise, pretty finite. It's not like there's that much nuance in it compared to all of food in many dishes.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. What is the percentage difference between the best hamburger and the worst hamburger? It's like, what, 25%?
I mean, listen, I think fast food hamburgers have a place in our culture. And
gosh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they're mostly delicious just by construction, right? But but you're making a top 10 and it's important that you do the work. When you're walking these streets, I mean, Robert, you're putting miles on. What are you looking for? I love this way of doing reporting, and I think it's a classic way to do food reporting that many certainly don't do anymore.
To begin with, there is nothing sweeter than finding a place. We used to say it wasn't on Yelp.
Yeah.
And now there's nothing that isn't on Yelp. I would say there's about 10% of the restaurants in the city are not on Yelp. But walking in an unfamiliar neighborhood, to begin with, you should always walk in unfamiliar neighborhoods just as a New Yorker. I mean, get on a train you haven't been on. I mean, there's trains whose letters remain unknown to the general public, like the Z train.
The Z, baby.
The M train, getting better known. But so get on the M train, go to Forest Avenue, beautiful view from the platform of Ridgewood. Descend and begin walking. I mean, you're going to see a place called Burick's Pizza. And it's not a pizza parlor. It is just an attempt on the part of the person making the burek, which is a phyllo pie from Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
That person wanted to convey that anyone might like this burek. So they put pizza on there just because they knew that it was like a clarion call. So anyway, you go to one of these neighborhoods you haven't been in, you wander around, you look for, as Jim Leff might have said, deliciousness.
Oh, Jim Leff, the founder of Chowhound.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, great reference there.
And delicious was never enough for him. He always had to add like extra adjectives to like superior deliciousness or overwhelming deliciousness.
I love that. Do you feel your Substack writing harkens back to a Chowhound's era in some ways?
Well, definitely, especially since without my $3,000 a month budget for dining, I am now, and because I'm paying for myself, I am now a true critic. I am paying my own money for things. I am thinking about spending. Do I want to spend $25 on that sandwich? No, I'd rather spend $12 on a sandwich or $8. So, luckily in New York, most places have a menu posted out front.
Yeah.
To begin with, if they don't have a menu, screw them. Just go on to the next place. Many pretentious restaurants won't have the menu, but you look at the menu to decide, do you want to pay that much money for that food? Then you look through the window. Are people actually eating the food in front of them? Too many restaurants, you look inside and the people are just like playing with their food or half a plate remains uneaten. you should look through that window and see people shoveling food into their mouths like there's no tomorrow.
It's such a great Robert test. I mean, we don't think about it, but there is an eye test to a restaurant. Like also like if a restaurant is empty, even if it's been given every acclaim on social media.
Oh yeah, oh definitely.
Like that happens because
Yeah.
like maybe word out is things aren't great. Yeah.
And the next thing you do is this is the most important step of all. You open the door and you walk inside and you smell. A restaurant that doesn't smell good is not going to be good. I mean, really smell. I mean, appealing odors.
Yeah.
And if God help us, it smells like cleaning solvents, as many restaurants do. It's like you're walking into one of those like Times Square, like dancing
Bistros.
clubs or something.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And the smell is the most important. And never be embarrassed to just turn around and walk out of a place if it just doesn't smell
Yeah.
good.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I loved your writing about pizza in Greenpoint. And I think the writing is really profound because I think you were talking about this restaurant that's been there for a while, that is just sitting there, that's in the shadow of, in some ways, of Chrissy's, which is this, extremely popular pizzeria. We've had Chrissy on the show. We love Chrissy's. But it gave a real like assessment of how we dine, how we go to the newest place like moths on flame, but we don't necessarily look around us to like the second or third place that might be actually pretty good too.
Oh yeah, and the thing about pizza or Pizzy or
I was trying to figure out the
PYCZ or
PYZA.
PYZA. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. To begin with, the ambiance of restaurants is much more important than people ever admit. This is a place that looks like, and there's a bunch of places like this still around. Streetcha in the East Village is the same way. You walk in and it's like a church basement. They have some paintings on the walls that look like paint by numbers. There's a counter in the back behind which a humorless woman stands. There's a menu over her shoulder, written in Polish and in English. And you get to read this luscious list of things that goes from blintzes to schnitzels to, breaded pork chops or veal or tripe soup or all these things. And they're translated. And you have to give her your order. And then she passes it through the kitchen. And then eventually it comes and she puts it out on the counter and she doesn't say a thing. You have to realize that it's your food come and pick it up. And you'll be so glad you did because it's so good in a meat and potatoes sort of way.
Yeah. You're not judgmental about food that maybe doesn't look perfect for the gram.
Oh, I love it if it doesn't.
Yeah, Shane calls it ugly delicious, and that's for
Is there any correlation between appearance as expressed in Instagram and TikTok, etc., and taste? I think that there's no correlation whatsoever. I mean, the two of them may be interrelated, but you can't really tell. I mean, a plate of spaghetti and meatballs could have like alum in it or something, or some like,
or it could be cold. There's like lots of things that doesn't say, or like there could be like a puddle of a liquid that should have been reduced in a certain way, or a taco could be exceptionally dry, even though dry photographs well. Like dry food looks really great on camera. Mushy, braised foods that we love don't look great, and of course the color shades. Like we look at reds and yellows, and we like that pops, but browns taste great. That's like caramelization, the Maillard, it's all there.
Well, Matt, you have a great idea for a book there. It's like a color theory of food. That would be like really great because you're right. Browns taste delicious.
Yeah, browns.
And no foods are blue. How could that be?
That riddle does encounter, we have this blue raspberry piece that I love. We published maybe like 7 years ago that there are no naturally occurring blue foods. Well, blueberries, where do you square that?
People have said that a blueberry is not really blue.
It's not really
like
blue.
a color of kind of purple or something.
It's more of a purple than blue. Yeah, it's not a true, turquoise.
Or a clear blue, a medium blue.
Wow.
Or, an electric blue.
Electric blue. Robert, so you had this meal, this really unsatisfying meal. We're recording this, late in the afternoon. What's for dinner tonight? Like what's in your mind, especially after you have this meal that you're probably not going to write about, or you won't write that much about it?
Nothing about it. No,
Nothing.
I'm not going to. I mean, I'd hesitate to foist it on anybody. I mean, I have a reputation to uphold.
Yeah, and you have paying subscribers for sure.
Last night I went with a couple of friends to this place in Jersey City called 62 Secret Kitchen.
Cool name.
And I had such a good dinner that tonight I'm just going to veg out at home and eat leftovers.
Robert, you've just given me the greatest gift. Because I think about you and I'm like, when I'm home not eating anything but maybe food I've made, I'm like, man, am I doing my job? You made me feel good.
Well, I'm sure you, like me, are a good cook.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help but be a good cook I long ago resolved to never eat a bad meal.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have, in spite of myself, like this afternoon. But in general, I only make good things, but I have things that I make more readily than other things. Like Italian food is really fun to make and easy to make.
Yeah. So Robert, what keeps you writing? What keeps you doing this? I mean, you probably don't have to do a Substack. I'm going to imagine that you could retire or do something else. I mean, you had this incredible run for decades, as I mentioned, but why do you keep doing it?
Because it's so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
I spent up until my writing life as a food writer, I was like the world's worst writer. When I was in graduate school, cranking out term papers about Thomas Pynchon and Robert Louis Stevenson and, Dante Gabriel Rossetti and, Shakespeare. I was just the most atrociously bad writer. I mean, in order to chasten myself, I have kept copies of my graduate school papers.
Good gut check. Good.
Oh yeah, and I actually did some rock writing in New York Rocker early on, and that wasn't much better. But when I stumbled on food writing, I loved it so much that it was just easy. And as the best food writers have discovered, the best food writing is just like talking about food. It's not like constructing painful sentences or you just barf it out, just like what happens if you eat a bad meal.
Yeah. I think someone like Helen Rosner, I feel like her vibe is like that. It's just feels effortless and it's just so terrific.
You know her personally, she's a conversationalist.
Sure is.
The best writers are the people that like to talk.
Yep. There really is a correlation, and you certainly, my man, can talk. I have to ask, is there a memoir? Because I feel like, you have this incredible story and you have these eras of New York that you lived in, and you've written so much. You have great work that you could go back to.
On top of that, yeah, now that you mention it, I am working on my memoir.
You are? Okay, good.
Up
I didn't
through
know that.
the late 80s, I have gotten so far.
Oh, terrific.
It's chronological. I'm very fortunate in that during several eras in New York, the celebrities were kind of everywhere. So name dropping is part of the whole thing that people want to read about in a memoir. But I would run into Andy Warhol once a week. And, and celebrities back then, they were really nice.
I mean, name dropping in a memoir is like that bowl of sour cream. There just isn't enough of it ever. Something.
But it's also too rich a diet, so.
Ooh, you're completing the metaphor in the best way possible. But you got to name the names. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But watching the Beastie Boys eat pizza at Stromboli's, watching them play basketball, seeing Allen Ginsberg kind of tooling around.
At Odessa?
Oh, yeah.
He was a fixture at Odessa.
Oh, he was indeed.
Yeah. He's legendary there. Stromboli's still good.
It's always been good,
So
and
it's
the
still
dirty
good?
secret is that because the original owners were Sicilian, they put a little bit of sugar in the sauce, and that's like opium.
It's the American palate summarized. Our love of sugar, not necessarily the same palate of Sicily, so to speak. So yeah, I think our Italian-American food has been inspired by sugar so much.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's so great. Well, we could go on. And again, I want you back on the show to talk about Down the Hatch because I have several issues in a pile in my desk at home.
Thank you so much.
We'll go over that this summer. But on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Robert, are you ready?
I am ready.
Wonderful. The best fruit.
Raspberries.
Ooh. The worst vegetable.
The watermelon radish.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
It promises so much and delivers so little.
Absolutely agree. What is your typical breakfast?
Well, I have a diner breakfast that I get whenever I go into a diner, which is like all the time. A contrast to my home breakfast, so I'll give you both. The diner breakfast is 2 eggs over easy, sausages, whole wheat toast in order to scrape the cholesterol out of my veins, and hash brown potatoes. Now, if they're real hash browns rather than the crap that they scrape around on the flat top
yeah.
all day. And real hash browns, go to Waverly Diner where they have those. My home breakfast is banana, yogurt, and honey.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What's the yogurt choice?
Well, always that Lebna.
Oh, yeah.
The fage, they call it.
Yeah.
And always, I would never buy a dairy product that was not full fat ever, period, for any reason. The low fat 90s destroyed the dairy case at the supermarket.
What a truth.
Low fat. Screw low fat. That's bad for you.
Yeah, low fat. When you want yogurt, you want to go full steam with that. The best dessert.
The best dessert I've had lately is at a place called Bread Story.
Oh, no, I don't know it.
It's on First Avenue and 15th Street. And I love the French flan, which comes with a crust and is so fluffy and creamy.
Oh, sounds amazing. This is a big question for you, and we've asked it to many guests, but I have to ask you, a restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead?
Oh, my God. Madras Woodlands.
Amazing.
I
don't know it. No.
Oh, okay.
And my brain is like, have I encountered that? No.
Madras Woodlands was the first place that I ate the greatest dish of all time, which is the masala dosa. Madras Woodlands was over by the United Nations. I ate there in the early 80s before anyone other than South Indians even knew what a dosa was. And this place was kind of a grand place, so I had to scrape money to go there. And but it was aimed only at, United Nations diplomats.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like to eat a dosa for the first time? I think I went to Pongal in the early 2000s. That was my first dosa, and I was like, this is a food I can totally stand behind. What was your first time like?
My time was like that. To begin with, when you go inside the crisp outer shell, which is made by adventitiously fermented dough made of grinding up lentils and rice, and find that it's got potatoes. Anything with potatoes rules. So the fact that in India, they made like a samosas the same way, that potatoes which arrived late in India were incorporated very adventitiously.
What a great memory. I feel like you probably have a lot of restaurants that you wish you could bring back from the dead. The best restaurant of 2024?
I would have to say Carnitas Ramirez. Because everything is there, the homemade tortillas, the choice of pig parts that runs from the most obvious kind of pig leg to things like pig uterus. So you can take a walk on the wild side or you can go conservative. And It's just the fact that they only do one thing, which is pig, is just so efficient. And there's so many... it's like Fergus Henderson. You
focus on one thing, you do it well.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
My favorite sandwich, I would say a meatball hero, a meatball parm hero. And I won't say where you could get it because you could get it almost anywhere.
Yeah.
Even pizza parlors make good meatball heroes.
If those meatballs are, seasoned correctly, right?
Well, by the time they get covered with garlicky tomato sauce and get put in a toasted bun.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Robert Sietsema, what a pleasure. Please come back. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
And thanks, Matt. I always like talking with you.
Eliza, how are you?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
I'm really great because I just returned from Tucson, Arizona. I was at the Tucson Festival of Books. I mean, 100,000 people. It's not just culinary. There's a culinary tent. It's not just people demoing recipes and great conversation about food, but there's all sorts of other authors, lots of fantasy. There's a lot of nonfiction. I would say like 20 tents where conversations are being held. We're signing books. Christina Cho, Joe Yonan, and I were sitting and people are coming up and buying books, and I love it. But then we're sitting next to the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Casey McQuiston.
Yeah, Casey McQuiston. Humbling experience when you're next to this like star fiction writer and literally there's an assistant handing books and it's like a limit of 10 seconds and there's like 600 people waiting in line. And I didn't have a Sharpie and I went over. Casey had like 4 Sharpies and I was like, can I just grab one? And very, very kind, allowed me to take the Sharpie. But I believe they probably ran out of ink out of all the other Sharpies. Impressive, I think.
Have you read that book or seen the movie?
I haven't seen. I know.
The Netflix movie is honestly so fun.
It's fun.
I watched it with my mom and we were just giggling the whole time. I love like a beach read like that, and it's so I think must be cool to be at a book festival that has so many different kinds of books there.
Yeah. It was amazing, and I really would like to go back. And I took the opportunity though between sessions to really dig into the Tucson food scene.
I'm sure you did.
I did. You know how I like to roll, and like if I have spare time, I like to go to a restaurant. I get to see some incredible authors. Just have stop and chats with and meals with Joe Yonan and Carolina Gellin and Ben Mims, and it was a lot of folks you've had on the show were there presenting and. It was so fun just to be in the sun. And, I'm going to start by saying the places I didn't get to go to because I couldn't go to all the places. And one place I missed was Barrio Bread, which is a James Beard Award-winning bakery run by Don Guerra. And I just couldn't go because the lines were like an hour long and I just couldn't do it. But I really want to go back next time. And the other place was Tito and Pep, which many people had told me was one of the city's finer restaurants. This mesquite grill, much of the food in Tucson, and this cooking is informed by wood-fired cooking over mesquite, and there's a lot of raw seafood there. And I can't wait to go to Tito and Pep. So I didn't go to those places. I have to shout out friends. Tavel Bristol Joseph, Jory Jacobs Klein, Jennifer Slow Howard. Those were my folks who I reached out to. They gave me the list and I hit them up.
I'm sure you did, but where did you go eat?
I'm going to start with State's Kitchen at Mercado San Agustin. Really cool place run by Erica and Jake Munoz. States represents 6 culinary regions of Mexico, and the menu is informed by this point of view. And I tried one dish because I was trying to limit that so I could make these visits. And I had a Mexico City-style quesadilla with cheese and green chili. And the menu read, it was all over. There's Oaxacan dishes. There's dishes from the Yucatan. And I just really loved what they were doing. So around Mercado San Agustin, I got to go to La Estrella Bakery, which had marnitos, which are these pig-shaped gingerbreads. And I had never had it. And I saw it all over Tucson, several of the bakeries there.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. And they have like different, some are like really clearly a pig, and some of them are a little more abstract version of a pig. What I liked about the 3 that I tried around Tucson was that there's ginger, but it wasn't too sweet. Mm-hmm. It was perfect with a coffee. It didn't really ruin the palate with too much sugar. And I just loved this bakery. This bakery had won many awards, and I had a little snack there. And Presta is a local roaster. Their coffees are terrific. And I had a really nice espresso shot. They have beautiful milk drinks. And I was like, wow. This is like early in my visit. I was like, wow, Tucson is amazing. Better than Phoenix. I mean, I had a pretty good time in Phoenix, but Tucson is really impressing me. So many more places, though, to mention, Eliza. I've got a list here. Shall I continue?
Yeah, I would love to hear more.
Okay, so a great recommendation from John Birdsall, who I got to hang out with, who lives in Tucson now.
So fun.
And I got an advanced copy of his book about queer food in America, a history, and I'm just starting it now. I can't wait to have John on the show to talk about it. And he recommended La Mesa Tortillas, which I got to visit with Joe Yonan, and we were kind of like We need to have some Sonoran-style tortillas. Joe was on a hunt. Joe's the food editor at the Washington Post and is very curious about food, as am I. And this place was so cool, milling their own flour, doing Sonoran-style, which are like hand-made and fired, and had the little burnt marks on the outside skin. And they're a little bit more bitter and sour than some of the tortillas I've had, the flour tortillas, that is, to be clear, in like New York or parts of Texas. And I just loved this place. They were so lovely, the staff there. But I think they're known mostly for their tamales. And I got to try a couple of them. They do a red chili beef and a green chili chicken. And holy shit, they were good. They are available to order. They're frozen and sold there, but you can get them shipped to you. $60 shipping. Okay, that is a large amount for shipping. But I would say check this out. The link is in the show notes. If you're looking for tamales for a party, I would highly recommend ordering these by the dozen. Have them shipped to your home, pop them in the freezer, have that party, have them available. So good.
If it's a flat rate fee, I would get together your neighbors and friends.
Yeah.
Buy many dozens because they freeze really well. You can,
well.
steam them whenever you want.
Yeah, and you're just not going to get this quality of corn and the nixtamalization and the way that they were really spectacular. And that's La Mesa tortillas. More to talk about, Eliza. More to talk about.
I know that you eat at so many places. Where did you go next?
I would say this. I eat at many places, but I'm very measured. I feel like I can't get full, so I like to try a couple things, get the vibe, report back, maybe for future writing. When I go to a city, I just love that. And we
do it for us.
Am I implying that I'm doing it for us? Because I feel like I'm doing it.
No,
for
I mean
myself.
the royal us of everybody listening to your recommendations.
I appreciate that. I just want Tucson to be given its shine because it's a great city in America that doesn't necessarily get the attention of Phoenix and Los Angeles and other cities. And they get this great book festival. This place I went to next was Time Market. It's been operating since 1919. It's right near the campus of University of Arizona. And I loved so much about this because the way that they ran their operation, you order the counter, get the number, they bring you the thing. Incredible. I love a well-run market. It can be chaos if one person is off. Wonderful staff. But what I like about it's a bottle shop, all natural wines. They've got a cooler filled with mineral water there's Mexican mineral waters and throughout Europe. A great, coffee shelf. They sell cookbooks there. Great coffee, had a great kale salad. So I didn't eat a lot there, but I really like this market. And if you're staying in Tucson, Time Market is definitely a place to go. I also popped by Anello, which is a pizzeria that came well recommended. I'll just have to say this. I did not eat the pizza. They were sold out or they were booked, something like that. It was a little bit later.
I'm surprised you didn't have the pizza.
I wanted to have the pizza. I'm just going off of what people told me and what I observed. I had a really nice chocolate tart, very Claudia Fleming. You know what I'm talking about. But what I'm going to say about Anello is that the pie is Neapolitan, but the really kind person at the counter was telling me it's not quite as thick and spongy and chewy as a classic Neapolitan dough. It's a little crispier. People seem to be loving it. The pro tip is that next door is Crooked Tooth Brewing Company, and you can order your pies, walk them over there, have a beer, don't wait in line. Just didn't have time to do that myself because, again, it's very late in the night and they were kind of done with the dough. But that's called Anello, and I recommend it.
Okay, where else did you go?
Well, I'm going to close with my taco crawl. I went to 6 taquerias, trucks. I went to restaurants. Some I liked and some I didn't. The ones I didn't like we will not be mentioning, but most of them I liked. And again, this is a Sonoran-style taco at most of the places using that style of tortilla that I mentioned, a little bit more sour. And I just loved the 3 I'm going to mention.
Can I ask a logistical question?
Sure.
Do you try to order the same taco everywhere to see how it compares? Do you just go for whatever you're gravitating towards on the menu?
Great question. I mean, I think a guy like Robert Sietsema would have more of a methodology.
Yeah.
Some of our great food writers who put in the work and do the crawls and do them properly do that. And absolutely not. I'm not one of those writers.
Your heart is leading you.
I just want to have a good time, and I kind of want to order what they're known for, talk to the server, see what they're known for, do a little research. birria came up quite a bit, and queso birria as well. And I think folks who know Los Angeles, South Bay style tacos, SGV tacos, would recognize some of the things I found there. But then there's a lot of wood-fired, like crispy tacos, like either on corn or on flour, but corn seemed to be the way I was going mostly. The first place that I want to mention is Casa Asada. And I like this place a lot. The chicharron carne asada is definitely the star. And then the chile verde was definitely the special and what the server told me to order. Tacos can be done Lorenzo style, which is a corn tortilla toasted over wood, or a carmelo, which is a flour toasted over wood. I've heard the margaritas there are quite nice from a few friends who recommended it. I love this place. It was like really good carne asada. Like, what can I say? It was terrific.
It sounds really good. And I want to give a bit of context. I feel like you probably know this, and people listening, just if you're not familiar with the geography of Mexico, Sonora is the state of Mexico that's on the border with Arizona. So it makes sense that there would be a lot of this kind of flour-style tortilla because it's originating probably even like not even 100 miles away.
Well said. Thanks for pointing that out. It's very close to Nogales, and the border is right there. And you're getting that Sonoran influence in many of the restaurants, also in Phoenix as well. I'm going to keep going with the taco crawl. The next taqueria I visited was Juanito's, and that is where I had quesabirria. I thought that the story of this place is cool. The guy started a taco truck in the San Fernando Valley in the 1980s, moved to Tucson in the 1990s, and this has been there ever since. The space is very large. It was a fast food style counter, and I could see that they were doing volume. I was there on a quieter night, but there was like probably 100 seats available, which is a great sign.
Wow.
Yeah, totally. Not much parking though. I was like, man, if this place is full, where are you parking? But that's always the equation when visiting popular restaurants. And I really liked the birria. It was I tried one taco. They had of course the ring of crispy cheese around the edges, and it was beautiful, served in a plastic basket. And that's Taqueria Juanitos. So my last stop on this mini taco crawl was El Rustico from the chef Juan Almanza. One of my favorites because it was a really special scene. It was late at night on a Sunday. There was a group of gentlemen enjoying the end of the week, drinking cervezas and just hanging out, and great music was being played. And it's kind of a restaurant with a couple personalities. They can do quesabirria, they can do all sorts of tacos, but also they're well known for their smoked pork ribs, and they have a big smoker in the back. I did not try them because I was quite full, if you can imagine. But I loved the way that these guys were just loving the ribs, and the vibe in there was great. The highlight of the entire trip happened on this visit, and it's a simple thing, but something that's so difficult to pull off. It was a complimentary basket of perfectly fried tortilla chips and a bean dip. A bean dip can change everything when it's perfect, and it was warm in a styrofoam cup, a really small one, and clearly they knew what they were doing. It was like all bean, salt, a little bit of fat. It was like a kind of, to me, a revelation about how great bean dip can be. And I think the warmth of it was something that it was like hot. It was served kind of hot. And then, of course, it cooled over the course of my snacking. And I just loved it. It was like one of these, like, wow, bean dip can be so good when it's so good.
The bean dip, is it like a refried bean kind of situation?
Yes, correct. So thank you for clarifying. So it's not one of those bean dips that's liquids in full beans that you can sometimes get at great taquerias. No, it was definitely a refried bean, which Joe Yonan and I were chatting about the origins of refried beans.
Joe Yonan knows his beans.
Joe Yonan knows his beans.
The author of the cookbook Cool Beans.
And he was telling me, and it's clear, refried beans are not fried twice. It's extra fried is what that means.
Yeah, it's like recooked. Really.
Recooked, yeah, exactly. It's not really fried, but it's recooked. It's not like you set it aside and fry it twice. It's not the way it goes. It's just extra. It's a little fun fact from the bean guy, Joe Yonan. I loved it. It was definitely more solid. You would be in that. The emoji of refried beans would be this styrofoam cup of beans.
It sounds so good to me. Refried beans are one of my great comfort foods, and I make them at home.
You make them
pretty often when I make beans and I have them left over. But hearing all of these recommendations, the taco crawl alone makes me really want to go to Tucson.
Yeah, Tucson's cool. Like, I mean, average age 71. Just
Awesome.
being clear. I love Palm Springs. I am I'm not shy of my love of Palm Springs. The food in Tucson, it just leaps and bounds better. And I just absolutely think as a place where you could slow down life, have great weather, have amazing food. I'm a huge fan of Tucson from this. How do you make your refried beans?
I use bacon.
Yeah.
Unless I'm making them for someone who's vegetarian, because my beans are normally vegetarian.
Yeah.
I'll start off by frying off some bacon, take out the great bacon once it's crispy, and I have that rendered fat. And then I put the beans in with that and kind of fry them off in the fat. I'll put some of the liquid in also, and then just kind of mash them down as they cook. And ideally, I have more of that bean liquid, and I can be adding in more of it till it gets to the consistency that I want. I don't know if it's the most traditional way, but I do think it's in line with the general ideology of making refried beans.
Do you add any alliums to it?
Sometimes I will fry off some garlic or onion or something when I'm putting in the beans. But normally my cooked beans that I'm making refried already have that kind of flavoring from when I made that pot of beans. So I find that it doesn't necessarily need it. But I will do onion, I would say.
We have a great recipe on Taste from Christian Reynoso, and I cook this one often. It is a vegetarian version and from a can. So this is a quicker version.
Yeah, and you're using that liquid in the can.
Exactly.
Probably.
Using liquid in the can, it's a quarter cup of olive oil, 1 onion, sauteed. Add the beans with liquid, cook away, and then start mashing and reintroduce, liquid in if it's even a little bit of water if needed, but any kind of stock you may have, and reintroduce it a little bit and just keep cooking and cooking away. Add some heat to it, add a little serrano chili at the end.
Yeah, I do put red pepper of some kind in basically everything that I cook.
Me
so
too.
I feel like that's happening at the end.
Yeah.
But somehow I feel like it's not going to hit in the same way that the beans did at that place.
Definitely not. I wish I could. Maybe I'll call them up one day and write something about it. But that's Tucson, Arizona for you. I had a great time. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanel and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.